But first, there are new questions tonight about what will happen to Confederate statues and monuments all around the country. Some people are already taking that matter into their own hands, as we have seen from overnight. Correspondent Doug McKelway reports again tonight in Charlottesville, Virginia.
In a sign of still simmering tensions, a man carrying an assault rifle held a Confederate flag at the foot of the Robert E. Lee statue in Charlottesville's Emancipation Park this morning. He was confronted by protesters. A handful of police intervened and escorted him to a squad car and drove off. That as activists threatened to tear down the Lee statue on their own with chains and trucks or a bulldozer. It's going to happen, Jamie Dyer told the Richmond Times-Dispatch. This is a beautiful equestrian statue, and I don't want to be like the Taliban or Bolsheviks, but this has to go. That's already happened in Durham, North Carolina. Last night, protesters, some representing the Durham branch of the Workers' World Party, surrounded a 1924 statue of a Confederate soldier, slipped a cord over its neck and yanked it down. Police stood by and only later promised action.
Let me be very clear. Don't make or don't mistake restraint for inaction. No one is getting away with this.
In 2016, North Carolina passed a law that prohibits removing monuments on public property without permission of the State Historical Commission. There are over 1,500 Confederate symbols in U.S. public spaces, statues, flags, schools, bridges, and buildings. More than 150 years since the Civil War, new skirmishes are erupting. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan today ordered the removal of a statue of Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney, author of the infamous Dred Scott decision that held that free slaves could not be American citizens. Lexington, Kentucky's mayor is asking for the relocation of 2 downtown Confederate statues.
There's a difference between acknowledging and learning about our history and glorifying it. It's pretty crappy to have a monument to some people who sold human beings as property.
In May, city workers in New Orleans took down a Robert E. Lee statue, the last of 4 monuments targeted for removal.
These statues are not just stone and metal. They're not just innocent remembrances of a benign history. These monuments celebrate a fictional sanitized Confederacy, ignoring the death, ignoring the enslavement, ignoring the terror that it actually stood for.
The biggest battle yet is brewing in Richmond, Virginia, the former capital of the Confederacy. Its Monument Avenue is home to several Confederate statues. Richmond's mayor has suggested a compromise: keep the monuments, but add contextual material. That is not appeasing opponents. Saturday night, after all the chaos in Charlottesville, many of those Richmond Confederate monuments were defaced. Historians are urging caution in all this. They point to the Soviet Union, where political figures were routinely airbrushed out of history if they fell into political disfavor. The end result of that was a lot of trouble. It did nothing to erase history and nothing to erase the anger from the other side. Bill?
Thank you, Doug. Doug McKelway in Charlottesville again tonight.